I will now give the floor to distinguished Ambassador of Montenegro. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. Montenegro aligns itself fully with the resolution on promoting reconciliation and accountability in Sri Lanka and sees it as an important step in a process of helping the Sri Lankan people move towards a lasting peace. We welcome, as the resolution does, the improvements that have been made by Sri Lanka. However, by supporting the substantive elements of the resolution, we join with the other countries in encouraging Sri Lankan government to take additional steps towards the promotion of justice and the implementation of real reconciliation. As High Commissioner Ms. Pillai stressed recently, and I quote, "Justice will be essential if there is to be true reconciliation after terrible and divisive conflict in Sri Lanka." The end of quote. Montenegro believes that this resolution reflects the efforts of Human Rights Council towards this genuine and principled objective. Montenegro thus encourages High Commissioner Office to stay engaged in the implementation of the recommendations and substantive elements of this resolution. And I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Excellency. Now I give the floor to distinguished Ambassador of Switzerland.
Monsieur le Président, la Suisse salue l'adoption de la résolution L1 intitulée « Favoriser la réconciliation et l'établissement des responsabilités en Sri Lanka ». Ma délégation continue d'être préoccupée par la situation des droits de l'homme et particulièrement le processus de réconciliation et l'établissement des responsabilités au Sri Lanka. La Suisse souligne l'importance du dialogue et de la coopération avec le Sri Lanka pour aborder ces préoccupations. Nous constatons avec satisfaction que cette résolution prévoit d'intensifier le dialogue avec le Sri Lanka à travers différents mécanismes. Le paragraphe préambulaire 17 encourageant le gouvernement à renforcer le dialogue et la coopération avec le Haut-Commissariat. Le paragraphe opérationnel 4 qui encourage le gouvernement sri-lankais à coopérer avec les titulaires de mandats au titre des procédures spéciales et de répondre officiellement à leurs demandes encore non satisfaites, notamment en leur adressant des invitations et en leur accordant l'accès voulu. Et finalement, le paragraphe opérationnel 6 qui donne à tous les membres et observateurs du Conseil des droits de l'homme la possibilité d'aborder ces préoccupations lors d'une discussion dans le cadre de la 25e session en mars 2014. Pour ces raisons, la Suisse considère cette résolution comme importante et constructive et la soutient pleinement. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Excellency. I will now give the floor to distinguished representative of Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. A country that witnessed a bloody and destructive 10-year civil war. A country that has bounced back from that bloody and destructive civil war through genuine reconciliation and accountability. We are compelled to support this resolution. We consider this resolution to be fair, balanced, and designed to bring about accountability and reconciliation. We are aware of the dissimilarities between Sierra Leone's civil war, which was only 10 years, as opposed to 30, which was clearly civil and not ethnic, and debatably not as violent as that in Sri Lanka. Nonetheless, we also realize the glaring fact that the only way you can bring about meaningful reconciliation, sustainable reconciliation, is through an end to impunity and meaningful accountability. We believe this resolution does just that in a fair way. That's why we support it, and we call on others to do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you. I will give the floor to distinguished Ambassador of Brazil. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brazil has been following with interest and concern the human rights situation in Sri Lanka, which shows challenges and advancements since the end of the conflict in 2009. As acknowledged in the High Commissioner's report, the government of Sri Lanka has made significant progress in rebuilding infrastructure, while the majority of the internally displaced persons have been resettled. Brazil also takes note of the National Plan of Action for the implementation of the LLRC. Brazil recognizes the efforts of the Sri Lankan government to be always present in the Human Rights Council with high-level representatives. We also believe that the review of Sri Lanka under the UPR in November 2012 represents an additional demonstration of openness to dialogue with the UN human rights system. Mr. President, cooperation with the UN human rights system is a two-way street. Brazil welcomes the visit to Sri Lanka by the OHCHR Technical Mission in September 2012 and the fact that they were able to meet with government officials as well as with civil society. We encourage the High Commissioner to act upon the invitation of the Sri Lankan government to visit the country. Such visits should not be subjected to conditionalities by either side. Brazil encourages increased and continued engagement with and by the Human Rights Council and its mechanisms. We invite the Sri Lankan government to take further and expedite measures to fully implement the LLRC recommendations and to promote national reconciliation and accountability. Independent and credible investigations by Sri Lankan authorities into allegations of violations of international human rights and humanitarian law would be an unequivocal sign of the commitment of Sri Lanka to the human rights system. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you, Excellency. I now give the floor to distinguished Ambassador of Venezuela.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. La República Bolivariana de Venezuela rechaza de manera categórica la selectividad y los dobles raseros de iniciativas como esta que pretenden empañar la
එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ මානවකම් කවුන්සිලේ 22 වන සැසිවාරයේ සජීවී දර්ශන සමගයි අප මේ අවස්ථාවේදී සම්බන්ධ වෙමින් සිටින්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් වන යෝජනාව පිළිබඳවයි මානවකම් කවුන්සිලේ 22 වන සැසිවාරයේදී සාකච්ඡාවට ලක් වෙමින් තිබෙන්නේ. පාකිස්තානය මීට ටික වේලාවකට පෙර මානවකම් කවුන්සිලේ ඇමතුවා. ඒ වගේම ඉන්දියාව, අයර්ලන්තය, මොන්ටිනීග්‍රෝ, ලැට්වියා, සියරා ලියෝන් සහ බ්‍රසීල් මේ වෙන විට මානවකම් කවුන්සිලය අමතමින් ඔවුන්ගේ අදහස් ප්‍රකාශ කළා. අපි නැවතත් යොමු වීමට සූදානම් සජීව දර්ශන වෙත එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ මානවකම් කවුන්සිලයේ 22 වන සැසිවාරයේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් වන යෝජනාව පිළිබඳව කෙරෙන විවාදයට.
Sri Lanka has displayed its serious attitude and commitment to this council and its mechanisms, as well as the office of the High Commissioner. And even yesterday, it updated us on its progress and challenges. The rapid progress is appreciable in implementing the plan of action for the implementation of the recommendations from the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. Mr. President, Venezuela rejects, inasmuch as they are unjustified and unnecessary, the interventionist attempts to meddle in the affairs of a country which is working towards its national reconciliation. We believe that this resolution does not have any foundation on genuine dialogue or cooperation, which are the cornerstones of the work of this council. We would warn of these serious risks and the dangerous precedent thus being created in the work of the council, the biased and interventionist nature of resolutions like this one, which entrench the anachronistic practices of using selectivity and double standards in a tangible way. We believe that this is a condemning resolution which does not take into account the efforts made by Sri Lanka to bring about reconciliation. We take this opportunity to reaffirm our position against this draft resolution motivated by a serious political bias which does not correspond to the facts and does not comply with the idea of universality, impartiality and non-selectivity that should always be supreme in the mandate of this Council. For this reason, Venezuela will vote against this draft resolution. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank you, Excellency. I will now give the floor to distinguished representative of Uruguay. Ecuador.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ecuador, in consistency with its policy of strict respect and promotion and defense of human rights and peace, has always condemned unswervingly violations of human rights in any place where they occur in the world, regardless of the circumstances in which such events occur, and also regardless of who are the perpetrators of such offenses. In the Human Rights Council, there should not be, as is unregrettably sometimes occurring, any partial biased approach, country situation approach. When this is sensitive, there should not be a double standard, a double speech, or a double ethics to qualify human rights occurrence as and to assess situations falling under the purview of this Council. Mr. President, the human rights situation. The human rights situation in Sri Lanka must improve. This is something that is not open to question, and the government of Sri Lanka should work for ethnic minorities and in general to benefit its people. Nonetheless, Sri Lanka is showing signs of political will and of wishing to improve the human rights situation following the conclusion of its serious internal conflict in 2009. For this purpose, it established a Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission whose final report contains a recommendation that it will investigate human rights violations that would occur during this conflict. For this reason and others that we've already expressed in this Council, we will vote against this resolution.
I thank distinguished representative of Ecuador for her statement. Any other members wishes to take a floor and deliver its general comments? No. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been informed by the we shall now hear from the concerned country. I give the floor to distinguished representative of Sri Lanka.